Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me and for all being here. I wanted to have a conversation with, with all of you. I think that I consider every performance in a way a conversation, because my performances, I mean, as they're designated through like the thing that I do called boychild, they generally don't exist without an audience. They're not like symbolic gestures, they are kind of shared spaces. Yeah, and so I'm really happy to be here. I think this conversation is very loose and casual because I don't know. I guess I think of everything that I do as a rehearsal for the thing that will become my presence here on this round. So I thought that I would open that up and kind of play with that. I know that in my experience performing here, it's a very generous audience. So maybe just have that in mind. I think it's good to like at least pretend to have some idea of what you're gonna see. That way you're not as reluctant to like go with it. But yeah, I've invited the other participants to kind of like host a conversation with me, and I think I would like to open it up for a Q&A at the end if there's time.
So can we chat with you, and you'll answer in whatever form you like. I'll start, and then maybe Wu and others would like to jump in. One of the things that I always think about when I watch boychild, I don't know how other people feel, but it's almost as if you're preparing to be possessed. And sometimes they have a light in their mouth, and it really seems as if there's a kind of deity that is visiting you in your body. There it is. There it is.
Don't tell anyone. It's just a light.
I won't. I'm not going to tell anyone. So I just want to think about possession and being possessed and agitation, as we heard about earlier, and you know what it means to you. It seems as if you're almost unbecoming yourself.
Absolutely. I'm like, please help me let go of myself together. I would say that when I first started performing, I was doing research about maybe the overlapping, just like the overlapping communal roles of maybe like jesters, court jesters, clowns, shamans, and medicine men. And that's something that I have been going back, I've like been remembering lately. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely opening myself up to something, and letting go of that like everyday performance that I do. Yeah, like I mean, just going to the topic of this, why we are all gathered. Here is, and the idea of like touch or hapticality is, and you wrote such a beautiful, what is the thing called at the beginning of the book? Preface for Fred Moten and Stefano Harney's book, The Undercommons. And that was really like the first time I'd ever come across this word hapticality. And in that book, I mean, the title of that chapter, that segment is called like Hapticality and Love. And I think that I love performing because for some reason when I do it, the boundaries open me up to that possibility, uninhibited in a way.
Well, I love this idea of shedding the everyday, because then it reveals to everybody how embedded we are in our repeated motions and activities that we also want to shed, but maybe we don't know how.
You be a drag queen if you want, whatever. Yeah, maybe I'll just do another little thing unless you gonna say something.
I have a question for you. Well, we've been talking about the word freedom yesterday, and I was wondering, because I think there's maybe like a common association people have between improvisation and freedom, like something like you're free to express yourself however you want or something. And I was wondering if you feel that the movement frees you, or what is your relationship to freedom when you're performing?
I would say absolutely the movement is... I would say the movement is one of the rare times that it's very clear that I am free. And I would also say there are like glimpses of that in the act of loving somebody also. But that's, I mean, you know, that's a different kind of work. It's not this like glimmery thing that I think people think of when they think of freedom. But also thinking about movement, it's very specific to me. You know, like the ways in which I can and cannot move, and the ways that I think about this all the time because I am constantly traveling to perform, and it's an exhausting joy to be able to do that. And I'm an American passport holder, so in many ways, airports are like the most terrifying. These, you know, you talk about interstices or interstitial spaces, like in many ways I'm granted access to and through and from. And they're also like very scary spaces for me as somebody who identifies as being trans. And but in this sense, and this thing that I call dance or movement, this is literally like it for me is doing that. And it's fun to do it by myself, but I have to say it's more fun with an audience. It's like, I don't know, somehow I feel that we're all kind of dancing or talking in those moments. But actually, that just reminds me, I'm gonna do another one. Because, Wu and I have a friend, was a very old friend of Wu's, and he DJs and makes music under the name Total Freedom. And I like constantly find myself performing to his songs. I don't know, there's something that he accesses. And that's another thing that I was like really thinking about, and the idea of touch is this, because to lip sync is to embody or move with something that was of the past, right? Pre-recorded. And also, especially in the case of like a DJ or this specific person, Total Freedom, his magic is seeing, not seeing, but like seeing and knowing these little histories that are embedded in maybe like very popular culture, pop culture music, and colliding them, and allowing, you know, this idea of like intimacy and violence. I think that there's this same whirlwind of things happening in his music. There's a really beautiful, like erotic intimacy and violence that's happening, and it's his knowledge of music. I feel like I have access to it by listening and performing to his music, and I also can add and like share another dimension to it with like my interpretive dancing, basically. But he actually just released like a bunch of tracks that he calls like a trash bag, so I'm gonna play one for you. Oh, it has a kind of dirty.
That's all right. We don't mind.
Could you change the lights to something? One of the other ones you picked. That one's cool. That one's cool, yeah.
Just staying with the blue for a moment, though. We don't have to be with the blue and thinking of both of your performances with the blue light. But I was thinking so much about electricity, especially with the music for the first part. And given the video that we just saw of the artist Lorenza, about a kind of way of being in touch with electricity, and that both, destabilizing and the remaking of the body, and also the lightning and monstrosity and the image of Frankenstein. Thinking with transmaterialities, but also the sense that I had of, the light being inside your mouth was for me so much an anecdote to something I was experiencing bodily, watching the video of Lorenza, in the dressing of the body in terms of renormalization, in terms of making the body labor under certain kinds of regimes, the electricity of the body and the way in which the body feels itself through electricity, and how the electron is made to labor under regimes of colonialism and militarism and racism as renormalization. And so watching the light in your mouth and watching your movements in the beginning and that disassembling of the self, I mean, I'm just yearning to see a kind of, and you're already giving us pieces of it, but just more emancipation is what I'm yearning for at this moment after watching that, the misery of normalization.
Like right now?
It's just an invitation. Only an invitation.
Oh, like for another one, or?
I mean, like I said, I think that you were already giving us bits of that, but it's, I guess it's just a yearning I still have, especially, I don't know, feeling, I try so hard to articulate these kinds of things and give words to them, and I've just been very moved by the art and watching this, and how you started out was so viscerally powerful to me in terms of the circuits of electricity that I was seeing, at least.
Hi, I just want to kind of continue what you were saying, Karen, and it made me think about vulnerability and risk in performance. And you sort of talked about the audience and needing the audience here, and what kind of transmissions are possible, or you are obviously giving a lot to us, but we've also been talking about freedom, and it made me think about the word choreography and sort of a score for a body, or like a bodily pattern or an order, and about improvisation, and what kind of sort of improvisatory gestures and like reorderings are happening in your work and among all of us, and in what you're bringing to us here in this kind of transmission between your work and us. Yeah, like if you think about choreography, that's kind of like a score for a body to follow a pattern that's supposed to be this kind of normative script, that's maybe like in dance supposed to be virtuosic or exceptional, and certainly not like disabled or I have an identity of any kind, have like a difference or have a mark. And so I was just thinking about another kind of element of freedom is improvisation, and yeah.
Can I see the red and blue ones? Thanks. Actually, I wanted to try and do something, and I do yoga, as Jack mentioned, but it's actually something I do very privately because I've had some weird experiences in yoga studios. But I actually, like, when I was thinking earlier, I was like, I really want to do something with you guys, with you all. I want to try and like breathe with me. Try and breathe with me. That's what I was gonna say. Try and breathe with me. So like that. Haven't danced for a while. Out of breath. Thanks for trying that. Does anyone else have questions? Or like...
I have watched this movie from Verepiev. It's called Oxygen, Kislorod. And it says that there is two dances within the body, which is left one and the right one, which is a left lung and a right lung. And then today we also mentioned something about the stranger within itself. And I think the act of like this conscious and especially collective act of breathing can really bring up that stranger, that maybe like this alive dancing stranger, yeah, just dancing alive stranger within inside. So thanks.
I wonder about the agitated body that we were hearing about earlier today. And what is really moving me, it's hard for me to find words for it, but it...
I know, right?
Yeah, it
You could dance it if you want.
Yeah, I was tempted. It feels like there's a holding of the gesture when you move, that you're catching it before it can fully express itself. You're catching it in the middle, or it's catching you in the middle.
Maybe the catch is the full expression. Sorry, was it? I just
Yeah.
That just came up to me, but
No, but that's something that I was thinking about. That it's what I think is moving me so much is that it ends when it has to end, rather than performing itself.
I think of like, I don't know why this thing is like so. I've been trying to explain this like thing to Wu that's like the power symbol is that circle with the line in the middle, and then like I was thinking of like the first time I heard the word dichotomy. I was actually studying at UC Santa Cruz, like probably reading like Jack or Judith Butler's work, like, and I was like, dichotomy, well, it's so weird. Like, then they have like that line down the middle, and I was like, I feel like they're actually like so. It's almost like the hyphenate, how you try to, or like you grammatize the slash. That they're like, they only exist because of the other thing. Like the opposites, right, exist because of the pull of one another, that force, that desire to be one another or opposites. And I think that also about maybe beginnings and ends, that they are and they aren't, you know, like. So that pause, like, what is that pause? I don't know what that pause is. I think for many, I was born, like, according to some people, or like when the internet was made or something, whatever, I don't know what that means, but like, I had Google at some point when when middle school. So I think the idea of the GIF, it's like we think we don't have time in the same way. We think we only have 4 minutes and 46 seconds because of YouTube, but if time doesn't actually exist, then there's so much that you can put in a second. And that repetition of it, or like, is it repeating even? Or is it the same thing? I'm not sure. Because maybe we all just like time skipped for a second. Maybe I just did one thing, I don't know. But I've never talked about that before actually, so it's a really cool thing to hear. Because I can't see myself when I'm dancing. It's just all. Like I get the feeling that I do this kind of stuff a lot, but I've never heard it. I've never heard it experienced that way.
Something in your exchange just now was making me think about holding. I think that was also maybe introduced, and I really appreciate Paul's presentation as well, because he was introducing this question of what is the hand to the artist, or what is the hand to the activist, and how might we mobilize differently if it's not so hand-centric, you know? And it actually then made me think of a line in the Mike's essay that Tosh and I keep referencing, but there's a line in it that says, "They can't see our hands, and this is demonic to them." And I guess I'm just thinking about what are all the ways that we hold without hands? That's just also what your movement makes me think about.
There's magic in the. I often think about when gravity catches us, right? Because when we move, it's it's a relationship with gravity. And this holding that you're talking about is really interesting to me because it offers so many different variations on where the holding is happening. And the world tends to give it to us when it becomes normative in only one way. And I think what I was trying to express was that right now the quality of the tension, that quality is very rich.
Rich. I am rich, see? Just kidding. Be a performance artist and get rich. Get really rich. Just kidding, sorry. I just get really nervous. Sorry, I'm being dorky. I haven't, I'm actually in school right now. I'm getting my MFA because I dropped out the first time, and then I was like, I want to do something different. And everyone was like, why are you in school? And I was like, well, because I never got to go to school, really. I always hated it. And I actually love it. But I have been using my body and mind in a very different way. Well, because they're the same. But, like, I haven't been dancing as much, so that was a long way of saying maybe I'll dance again.
towards the end of our program. I guess I wanted to ask one thing of the audience, not of boychild, but this may seem weird, but coming at the end of our conversations, I wonder whether anyone has a non-verbal question for boychild. Any others? Well, that was beautiful. There was another one. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're in the stage of the nonverbal at this point. Can we do one? Me?
The boy child.
Thank you. Thank you, boychild. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
And then I have one question for you, and you have to do it. It's not a question, actually, it's a demand. It's like ticket entry. You have to dance. No. That can be anything, obviously, but like, you know, like, where did it go? Can we get the blue and the red lights again? The blue and the red, please. Thank you.